Welcome to Crimson Courage, where we amplify the voices of warriors. In this space, we speak about stories of resilience and overcoming challenges. Today, we have an amazing guest, Dr. Mbunya, who is actually a champion when it comes to creating awareness about blood disorders like hemophilia and sickle cell disease. And we are at the perfect venue to do so at the fantastic Fit Kitchen, which is great for speaking about all matters when it comes to health and wellness. So let's dive deep and get to learn more about Dr. Mbunya and his mission and vision when it comes to creating awareness about blood disorders. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam, for coming.
Thank you very much, Tracy.
Sana. Thank you for making it. We are happy to be here. Happy to create awareness, and learn more.
Kabisa. I'm also happy to be here.
Okay.
It's been a journey just to be here. So thank you all for giving me this opportunity.
Welcome. So here we are all friends, and when it comes to matters of creating awareness, that is what we do as Crimson Courage. So Sam, maybe you can just start with telling me, how did you get into this line of work for creating awareness about blood disorders, and dealing with sickle cell disease and hemophilia?
Well, first of all, I'll say that Crimson Courage is doing a fantastic job, to be honest. The work that you're doing, the voices have to be heard. And that's where I actually decided to go into. Najua hii mambo ya kupiga kelele kidogo is very important, so that your voices are heard. I have a lot of things, like in terms of the things I've been doing, my background in health, and the journey that it has taken me to where I am right now. I consider myself ni kama mtetezi, mtetezi ya the voice of the people. In Latin they say vox populi. So my background actually in health is biomedical sciences. That's what I studied in university in London. And then I did a postgraduate diploma in research. Then after that, nikajipata niko kazini. Then I focused on doing like an MBA, so that it becomes a bit official when you're doing that work, to get the skills and tools. And then over time, I got myself in areas of interest where I started seeing that there's opportunities to reach out to the communities, to raise awareness and be able to advocate.
All right. Okay. So there's something that I've heard. You've said that definitely it was driven by passion. But there's a challenge that you face with dealing with maybe local communities, number one, who are not aware about these conditions, for example, like sickle cell disease and hemophilia. So when working with such individuals who definitely come from far, very local areas, what are some of the solutions that you have found that you use that is sustainable, especially when it comes to communication? Because these are patients that definitely you have to keep in touch with. You have to make sure that at least they understand how to manage themselves or manage the child, and actually what it means to have like a condition such as sickle cell or hemophilia, which is genetic, which means that it is affecting the family as a unit.
Now, going back kwa roots, uko mashinani kabisa. The information that we are providing to the communities, especially the blood disorders, sickle cell and hemophilia, most of the times, especially kitambo, ilikuwa a lot of jargon. Yani, it's the hard medical language. It's very harsh. Na wase uko kwa ground, na waelewi kitu. So, especially like the doctors were the ones who are going into the communities, the nurses, wanaenda wanabonga, wanasema. But community yao, our relate nayo in that way. So to bring in certain individuals as well, so I can't work alone. So I have to work with other people. And these communicators, as I say, per se, it's like I'll have like a warrior or a person living with sickle cell or a hemophilia hero be with me as well nikiwa in those forums, because sometimes seeing is believing. Acha tuseme hivyo kwa kizungu, seeing is believing. So when they see someone who is with, I can even say like a person with lived experience, let's put it that way, they get to see and believe that this thing is real. Then they start asking themselves questions. Why? So as we come in like that, so me personally na come in to explain in such a way when I feel very comfortable.
Okay.
So you have to break the barrier of how people think, the way you approach them, and how you approach them matters. So the information is very key. But your seeing is believing is very important. And advocates or advocacy in general for communities, it's ideally the person with lived experience should be the person at the forefront.
Okay. To
discuss more about the issues that they face. Ni nini na, wanasemanga kwa mguu huko, pali inaumiza the most, hao ndo wanajua. So even my mission ideally is not to be the advocate for life or be the one who is at the forefront. Mimi natakuwa kwa background. Natakuona sasa the person living with, with these conditions be the people at the forefront. Once we give confidence to the communities, they're able to speak out about their conditions, and they're able to just talk about their life.
That's true.
Mimi nimeulizwa maswali, tulikuwa Kakamega juzi, wakasema ati, is there a way tunaweza toa hii gene?
Yeah, even in Ambira,
even
most parents
Ambira,
were asking, especially the mothers, because moms are the ones who work with patients or children who are ill. And sometimes you find, most times actually, mothers are the ones who are blamed that you brought us children who are ill and such and such. So you found that actually a lot of them are asking questions on how are we able to now have children without sickle cell if both mimi na mzee tuko na hiyo gene.
Hey, I'll tell you, in my advocacy years and the work that I've done with blood disorders, that those questions of late, they've actually, yani imenifanya niko na a lot of questions to myself also. In the sense that yani kwa communities wako na imani like wanaweza pata watu wenye wako without the genes, or they don't have sickle cell.
I think it's first because they don't understand what a genetic disease means. Yes,
that is true, by the way. Genetics is very complicated. It's actually even a course on its own, because now genetics, it's you go right deep into the gene itself, where you understand hii gene inawaka hivi, hii inafanya hivi. Actually, the easiest way for me to explain to people kwa communities gene thing, vile tulikuwa na wewe huko Ambira, nilikuwa nasema, you see the way your eyes look, your nose, your ears, ukiona your father and mother, kuna kitu umechukua kutoka kwa one of your parents. Naona that's ni kama your identity that you get from your father and mother. So genetics is the same, that we actually get a gene from, we get like 23 chromosomes. Wacha tuende tu sasa science kiasi. Wala walisoma biology kitambo. Tuwakumbushe 46 chromosomes ndio tuko nazo, 23 father, 23 mother. For sickle cell is the same thing. So utapata 23. But sasa umepata ile gene ya mother na gene ya father. Because sasa with sickle cell, it's especially carriers wako na the two genes vile nasema, so one from father, one from mother again. So hiyo moja yenye tuseme mpata from your dad na hiyo ingine imetoka from your mom, is the mom say ni carrier, then ni chances again dice. You might get the gene, might not get the gene. But now when father and mother konayo ni dice tena, but now kuna ile chance ya the two genes getting together, then unakuwa na sickle cell.
Okay.
Yeah. But for hemophilia, vile nimesema, it's the mothers have this X gene yenye wanapatia the boys. But now the boys, when they grow up and they have kids, let's say wanataka watoi, which they can have, by the way. Yeah, there's nothing issues at infertility. Watu wako sawa. Utapata watoi. But now the boys who have hemophilia, if they have kids, they pass that gene to the girls.
Wow.
Because it's X.
Okay.
So XY, the Y is not dominant.
So in hemophilia, it's the X gene that is affected.
It's the X gene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So there's also something I've picked up that mostly it's boys who seem to be heavily affected with these blood disorders. Like even in sickle cell, we know boys get like really affected by it when it comes to crisis, priapism,
yes, I think
and even
right.
in hemophilia.
But that umenifundisha kitu leo.
So
sana jaribu kuweka hiyo.
You're trying to place it together. Yeah, but together, it seems like the males.
No, I agree with you. Hata ndo nimejaribu kumbuka when I was in uni nikifundishwa hizi mambo za genetics. The boy child, you know, si tumesema tuko na XX for ladies or girls.
Yeah.
Then boys have XY.
Yes.
So that Y gene, by the way, is not dominant. It's very the term is recessive.
Okay.
Iko weak kiasi. Your Y gene iko very weak. So your X gene yenye ina do the job tuseme, like if it's the affected one, then you'll definitely get more of issues because now this other gene ingine isaidii.
Okay.
Naelewa. That's usually the case. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Some people might have another opinion.
So you just protect the boy child.
Boy child akona shida.
Yeah.
Tukianza kuongea juu hiyo story, hiyo tutaichaji another session. Actually niko na interest na mambo ya boy child, so tunaweza ongea hiyo another time.
Okay.
But even so, it's still a big issue.
Yes.
When it comes to that level of trying to explain to the community, tutarudi tena kwa community, about these genetic conditions.
Yeah.
But mi nilipenda vile nilikuwa Mbira, actually nilikuwa Kakamega nikaenda Mbira in Siaya. After these advocacy trainings, alafu sasa vile tulikuwa pamoja, being together with warriors.
Yes.
And for me napenda kuona hivyo. Because once a person with lived experience has that information and knowledge, and unaona kama wewe mazee uko fiti, uko na knowledge, uko na information, uko na podcast.
Yeah, and actually when us warriors stood up to speak to the parents, they felt more encouraged. They were like, kumbe, you know, you can study and reach a certain level.
Yes.
But also now also me speaking as a warrior now, when it comes to even these things of what we face and even trying to help others with creating awareness, you find that when you grow up with a condition, the biggest issue comes with mental health. There are certain things that you believe, like for example, you go to hospital, you're called a sickler, you know, so you just basically believe that you must always fall sick. And then, you know, growing up with such limiting beliefs, it does something to a person. Yeah, so even I felt like for those parents that we interacted with at the medical camps, that is their biggest worry, you know, that now your life is confined to a certain way, that this child will always have to be sick. So even when we come to matters of creating a change, where we said Africans were used to doing the same old things, I think something that we can delve into, even as we do like the kind of conferences that we've been having for sickle cell and blood disorders, is having a program whereby when you attend these conferences, at least you leave having learned something. So we have facilitators, like for example, me personally, I work with a behavioral change specialist.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And
it has really helped me a lot, even believing what my body is capable of. Like, honestly, for me, there are some things I believed in that were very limiting. Like for example, mimi nilijua personally, if the weather changes too like this, I must fall sick. But now I've changed that behavior pattern in my brain.
Right.
So for me, it doesn't mean that now if it's hot and all of a sudden it's become cold, lazima nipate crisis. No. Or like for example, previously I used to believe that if I'm opened or exposed to someone who has like maybe an infection, like let's say the flu, because I'm a person with sickle cell disease and my immunity is low, and maybe being a sickler, growing up a sickler, you're prone to getting infections. Ni hivyo. Mimi pia lazima nipate hiyo homa. Yeah, so those are some of the behavioral changes that I've actually come to see within myself, whereby now I believe in myself more. I believe in my body being more capable. And actually I have more peace of mind.
Yes.
And this is something I try and teach other warriors. But you see, it's kind of, it needs more support.
Yeah, it needs
whereby
more
you can
support.
find like an organization like Empath has like a sort of a conference for sickle cell and then empowers warriors with such skills. Like maybe they have a breakaway session with a nutritionist, another breakaway session with a psychologist and deal with matters of mental health.
Yes.
Another one they have with, I don't know, someone who does fitness to teach them how to do sustainable fitness. Because, you know, as warriors, we need to move our bodies.
Oh, yeah.
Like me, I always ask within our groups for sickle cell warriors, who does exercises in the morning? When you wake up, do you stretch kidogo?
Yeah.
Can you lift weights kidogo? And
Very
then
important.
because of that limiting belief, they're like, ati you wake up to lift weights. Hapana, mimi nitapata crisis if I wake up ati to stretch and do all these things. You see? So creating such impactful programs can really help.
First of all, nataka kuchange mindset za wase kusema sickler. That needs to go away.
Yeah.
They are warriors. They are resilient and they go through a lot. So wapatie tu hiyo wapatie tu warrior status. Hao ni mashujaa. Yeah. And also Hemophilia heroes. They are shujaz. Unajua the problem that we've always had is the mindsets that we've had for many years is very shallow, in the sense that hatutaki change. Tumezoea to the same thing.
Exactly.
Now when change comes, you start fighting it, or you don't want to conform to it, or unajipata like, oh, this is all I know. Staki kuingia. The fear of the unknown, acha tuseme tu hivyo, the fear of the unknown. So unajipata in a position where when you try to tell people in the communities that, you know, there's an issue hapa hivi, sometimes it's very difficult to change the mindsets. But constantly ukiongea, constantly you talk about the issues, constantly you say that there's a solution, kuna kitu tunaweza saidia, and they get to see it, then they are like, okay, I think there's something that can be done here.
Yeah.
And the thing around conferences or bringing or having a forum for people living with sickle cell and hemophilia, I think is about time to happen.
Yes.
Tulifanya like something similar or mini, where fortunately nilipata funds somewhere, nikaleta around 25 people living with sickle cell and hemophilia, like combined, joint. Kisumu conference. Sijui kama ulikuwa.
I was there, the one in June.
Yeah, the one in June. So your conference, when you got to see people living with lived experience, wakona hizi blood disorders, together na madoctors, na nani, wanaongea. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because the interaction between the healthcare professionals and the persons living with the conditions was seamless, because they had to find ways of communicating and being able to address an issue yenye inaonekana. Na wanasema, okay, here is the problem, we are trying to address it, how do we go about it? So major stakeholder lazima kuendani.
Exactly.
Lazima kuendani aseme, this is where we face the issue. No, this is not working. How can you improve it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
No. Your conversation was very crucial.
It actually was.
Very, very crucial.
Yeah. And I can say, as a person living with sickle cell, it made us feel like actually there's now a difference, because you know sometimes you attend such forums and you just feel like people are preaching at you. They don't really want to understand or create impactful change.
Yes.
Whereby now you feel it's the last day, you're going home, maybe you went for that conference for like 3 days and it hasn't really created any change. Maybe watu wa Ministry of Health hawajasema from today this is what is going to happen, or maybe you've not gotten like maybe a specialist who has actually changed something that you're doing and created for you a solution that is lasting in your life. So I think we just have to look at a way to make impactful.
You know, I've thought
change.
about it.
Yes.
Isi kitu ati is new. I've thought about it. And the thought process is to create these forums specifically for patients and caregivers only.
That's true.
Now, of course, we might have some healthcare professionals there to assist and support and many, but the forum is to, and I think even US they do this. It's not like they don't do it. They have conferences specifically for patients and caregivers, or people living with blood disorders and caregivers. Now, vile umesema, sharing, like showing talents, or if there's like a presentation that needs to be shown around means and ways of coping with living with the blood disorder, and how did you go about it?
Yeah.
Umeongea juu ya behavioral scientists, ama behavioral change.
Yes.
But yeah, I've actually worked with a behavioral scientist. But now you made me think around how behavioral scientists can come in and support
Hata au watu
change.
Even now watu tumesema wa miti shamba, those waganga. You know, there are people who, that is their background. They are used to herbal medicine or medicine from the earth. Ama wale wa ras. You know, having even a breakaway session with such a person who is now an expert in maybe earth medicine. Yeah. So that everyone can feel included.
That is
Someone
true.
can learn something new.
Yes.
Or even you can add on to what you know. Yes.
No, you're right. I mean, this community, hii kitu inaitwa community.
Yes.
It involves everybody. So when we are advocating for all to be advocates,
Yes.
si ati wewe ndio advocate sasa wewe fanya kazi yako. No, everybody is an advocate. So when you have that information there, you provide it, inakuwa ni ile story like how do we, vile ulisema, package it. Let's package it, that information kwa communities, so that waelewe, so that they can make informed decisions, and so on and so forth. On my one note to take is that we are our brothers' keepers. We need to change the way we do things. We need to change the perceptions that we see in the communities. We need to involve everybody as stakeholders. Inclusivity is very key. No one is left behind, and we provide means and ways to support. Mongejo mental health, which is very crucial. Psychosocial support is very key. So driving that information to even make people waende hata kwa Crimson Courage. Wakuje waongee, wakuje wakae. Tuongee, tuseme vile iko. Yani freely. Mimi hata siko KTN sahi. Niko tu free. Naweza bonga vile nataka, language najisikia, but the message has been driven home. No. So hiyo courage yenye unanipatia hapa kuiongea hivi, hata nikitoka hapa ni kuendelea kuiongea, unaona? So kupatia people hiyo courage, hiyo opportunity ya kwenda kuongea, and to have that free conversation about it. Let it be a normal discussion and conversation. Ndio even the persons living with the conditions also feel that tuko pamoja kwa hii story. Na for me nataka tu kuona wasee wenye we are, you know, moving on to the next step sasa. Tunaona nini kwa ground? Sasa tumeongea bla bla bla, lakini sasa kwa ground iko wapi? Tunataka kuiona, tunataka kupush. But you know, atulali. Mimi nikiona warrior ananipigia simu tunabonga, even not saa zile ati ya msiko anything, tunashukuru Mungu, tunathank God pia nao pia waendelee kukaa vizuri. So me I thank Crimson Courage for the opportunity, and muendelee hivyo tunafaa kuleta wase wa bigi hapa, wase wa politics, nani watu wako involved kwa grao, ma advocates wenye wanafanya mambo. There's so much that we can do. And then to reach out to as many as possible, we try and get all stakeholders on board. So mi naweza sema tu asante for the opportunity. Najua nimetoka mbali, niko na safari, but ile time kidogo nimejitolea, najua it will go a long way to reach out to as many people. So thank you so much for your time as well.
Thank you too for coming and giving that expert opinion, experienced opinion, and together we'll move forward and we'll create that change. And thank you for coming to Crimson Courage and being courageous to even set your foot down and say, this is what you're going to do. Till next time.
Tuonana. Safi sana.
Thank you so much for staying tuned in during our conversation with Dr. Sam Mbunya. I hope that you've gotten to learn more about health and advocacy when it comes to blood disorders such as sickle cell and hemophilia. Kindly stay tuned and wait for our next video where we speak more about all areas that comes with advocacy for sickle cell warriors, people living with conditions, the persons who support us like caregivers and health practitioners. Thank you. This has been Crimson Courage.